My mother-in-law, straight up, put my entire career in jeopardy. I've been working my entire life for this. So what do? I kick her out with no money, no way home, and I don't give a... I created this throwaway because I cannot tell anyone else about this crazy jerk's actions without putting my own career at risk. You guys, I need to vent. I'm still shaking with anger as this only happened a few hours ago. Mother-in-law is from a small town in the American South, and she has all the gossipy small town tendencies. It's never been a problem for us, me and dear husband, before because we live in a major city clear across the country from her. Aside from her usurping dinner conversations during visits to catch up on the scandalous comings and goings of people in her congregation, we did not really have to deal with this side of her too much until today. I'm a family law attorney with a boutique firm. My specialty is divorces. I'll admit, on a day-to-day basis, my drama llama is clinically obese with all the feed I get from work. But when I have some downtime, I still lurk this sub because I just love the theoretics on here. Sure, divorces are entertaining sometimes, but the stuff goes on here. Shonda Rhimes a run for her money in terms of shocking behavior. Mother-in-law loves that I'm a divorce attorney. She's always pumping me for stories from work that she can gossip with her congregation. And rarely I do throw her a bone. Never with specifics, all within my ethical boundaries, of course. For example, I'll tell her, my client has 5 kids, but only wants custody of 3. I don't elaborate and just let her feign absolute shock over someone not loving their children equally. Fast forward to the Title incident. Mother-in-law is in town for dear husband's birthday. We flew her in because it was a nice thing to do, and up until today, I was fond of her. She's staying with us, which is fine because we have a guest room, and our home is large enough that no one's personal bubble feels invaded. As most mother-in-laws do, she's always insistent on cleaning my home. She's never snooped before, so it doesn't bother me, but I do very firmly tell her that we have a housekeeper and just to enjoy her vacation. Today, I worked from home as I often do when I have no meetings. I was in my office slaving away on one of my more continuous, juicy cases, and I took a break to shower and get ready to take mother-in-law out to lunch. Dear husband was at work, so it was just us 2 gals until quitting time. I figured we would grab some overpriced salads and do some window shopping. What could go wrong? Immediately after the iced teas were served, mother-in-law says, "So, whatever happened to Mr. and Mrs. Smith's embryos? Did she get custody or were they destroyed?" And some very detailed questions about the case that I'm definitely too paranoid to even mention vaguely because of her. You freaking guys. I literally snorted my tea. It went everywhere. I look like the Bellagio's fountain. Mother-in-law had the audacity to go through my case files, my confidential case files, and read the facts while I was in the shower. I asked her how the duck she knows so much about the case I was working on, and she said she was cleaning my office when I was getting ready, and that I just left them out. First of all, no the freak I didn't. They make you take an entire class in school about doing shit like this. I would never. It's been ingrained in mine since my first L year that attorney-client privilege is paramount. And if pigs flew and I did leave it out, this case is a monster. To garner that much information about the divorce would require to turn several pages. So, me, quote, leaving it out is no excuse, and she would have to sit her dumb ass down and read through it. It's not like all the facts could have fit on one little sheet of paper that just so happened to be laying there. She said she needed to be in my office because it was filthy. Okay, I'll admit, a little dusty and there are a few coffee mugs in the room, but it's by no means filthy. And the reason it's in the minor shape of disarray in the first place is because I don't allow the housekeepers into my office for this very reason. I opened my wallet, threw some cash onto the table for whatever we ordered, and told her to get in the car. I could not even remember the ride home. I was just yelling and lecturing and lecture yelling. This was an incredibly shitty thing for her to do. Work at a boutique firm, my reputation's everything to my career. I cannot have word on the street that I just go around town spilling client secrets at the local watering hole. She can very well ruin my budding career by doing this. I think I threatened to sue her if she blabbed about this case. I definitely threatened to tell her son what an imbecile his mother is. This threat to never have her in our home again. It doesn't matter, because as soon as we got home, I told her to pack her things or I'll have her arrested for trespassing. Then I called her an Uber and listed the address on my app as the airport. I did not even pay for her plane ticket. I don't know what's going to happen, actually. I do know that she's at the airport right now because that's where the app dropped her off. My husband won't know about any of this until 5:01 p.m. because he works on a secure job site. There's no phone calls or texting. I have steam coming out of my ears. I do feel guilty because she might be stranded at the airport without my financial help. But what she did was so out of line that I think a few hours of time out would do my pettiness some good before I finally call the American Airlines terminal and get her a one-way ticket back to Gossipville, USA. As I said, I love drama too, but not enough to put anyone's livelihood at risk. It was such an intrusion that I'm at a loss for words. Am I mad for myself? Am I mad for my client? This is just the first just no thing that she's ever done, and I'm glad I demonstrated that this behavior is not to be tolerated. But part of me kind of thinks she's just too stupid to realize how bad her actions were. I'm going to wait until dear husband comes home before I try to contact her. I'm still much in state of WTF to deal with her right now. Update number 1. Kicked mother-in-law out of the house for putting my career in jeopardy. If your eyeballs are itching for an update, then you better sit down. It's a long one. I want to thank everyone for their support, and I wavered in justifying my reaction because it was so strong. But I honestly don't regret it. I was feeling kind of down for being so harsh on her right after she left. But you guys really drilled it into my head that everybody knows what privilege is. I mean, Law and Order has been on air for 400 years. There's no way she doesn't know that what you tell your lawyer is confidential. I acknowledge that it may seem extreme to some of you who don't practice law, but this is my livelihood. This is the only thing that I know how to do professionally. It took me a lot of money to be able to do this, and school, and the consequences for a breach like this is very severe. In all reality, I could lose my license for something like this. I exploded like I did because it was just so disrespectful to the life that I tried so hard to build for myself and her son. To answer the most common questions I got from my original post. Number 1. While I was tearing her a new one, she was very belittling of the severity of the situation. She would say things like, "It's no big deal, I don't even know them." Or, "You can trust me, we're family." I think that her not understanding that this isn't just gossip made my mind stop working. It literally broke me, and I have no more rational ducks to give to her. You want to snoop? Fine. But don't make me feel like the a-hole when you get caught. You were the one in the wrong the whole time. She was just trying to make me feel like I was overreacting. And that what she did wasn't that big of a deal. Yes, the freak it was. She acted like she was just humoring my temper tantrum, that type of quote, "Oh, when you tire yourself out, I'll put you down for a nap" type of attitude. I'm not a toddler mother-in-law, but that mentality would explain why it was so easy to get her in that Uber. She probably thought she would be able to return in a few hours after I calmed down. Number 2. My home office has a 6-digit numerical code lock. We installed this not because I ever anticipated something like this would happen, but because dear husband also owns a lot of firearms. How did she get the code? Guess. Freaking guess. She absolutely needed dear husband's original birth certificate. Why? We're grown-ass adults. What could you possibly need it for? And instead of getting it for her like a person who's been specifically trained on the importance of security, DH just stayed on the couch playing video games and gave her the code, and told her exactly where to find the birth certificate. All my freaking whats. All your whats. Everybody's whats. Don't worry, he understands his colossal mistake now. Yes, we can trust her with guns. No, we can't trust her with anything else. Number 3, thank you for all your concerns about my job. Some comments were very sweet, and I can't believe you guys care so much. I'm just a screen name to you. However, it's not necessary to make suggestions on how I handle the consequences of the situation. I know exactly how to deal with this situation professionally. I just didn't know how to do it personally. Okay, now on to what happened. I decided not to shoot dear husband a warning text as some of you suggested, because I wanted to make her tie her own noose. I wanted her to tell him such a vivid story so rich with fake details that it would be impossible for her to backtrack when I disprove her version of the events. I even wrote out a bunch of pointed questions that dear husband can ask her, in order to corner her into telling the truth. Not unlike questions you would use in deposition. I don't know why I was preparing a litigation strategy. I guess I was swinging the pendulum too much to the other side because of how emotional my reaction was earlier. I wanted to be extra rational now. It's a little embarrassing in hindsight. This was the first time mother-in-law and I ever had a disagreement so divisive that it required dear husband to pick sides. And to be honest, I have so much faith in my husband, but because this was uncharted territory, I didn't know what to expect. I was pretty sure he's my partner in love and in life, but y'all really freak me out sometimes with those mama boy stories. I'm glad I was right about him. A little after 6, dear husband walks into the house and asks me bluntly, "Why are the cops going to sue Mom?" It was so far removed from what actually happened that I started laughing hysterically. "That's not what happened today, baby. I told your mom I would call the cops on her if she did not leave immediately, and I'm ashamed to admit that I did threaten to sue her when I was yelling indiscriminately. I have no actionable cause that I could prevail on, really." I told him what happened, and he was just confused. He already talked to mother-in-law, so he knew that she was at the airport, and he did know the situation. Luckily for me, she did not come up with an elaborate lie to tell him. She truthfully told him her version of what happened, and tried to make it seem like I blew it out of proportion. I half expected this because if she thought she was doing something truly, really wrong, she would not have brought it up so casually over lunch. I told him we need to buy her a plane ticket because she wasn't welcome back in our home, and he agreed. He did not try to justify her actions, and he understood so clearly how bad this could have been for me. And for us. We just closed on a home 2 months ago, so again, down to one income would be a financial disaster. We're both kind of sad that the trip ended this way, but it's not something mother-in-law and I can just heart to heart right now. I need time, I need space, I need wine. Here's a little bonus before update 2. She was having a pity party at the airport for almost 9 hours because she, quote, forgot her wallet at our place. She wanted dear husband to drive it to her because how else would she board a flight home without an ID? Of course, she could not call me because I'm so scary when I yell. So please, 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 dear husband, you have to find her wallet and bring it to her. It was on the neatly made bed. I mean, come on. At least toss it behind a nightstand or something so your story would have been more believable. She probably just wanted to see dear husband without me and convince him I've lost my marbles being so upset like that with her. Joke's on her. I made him buy her a non-refundable plane ticket online before we left the house. See ya. Update number 2. Kicked mother-in-law out of the house for putting my career in jeopardy. Welcome all llamas. This is my last and final update. Also, I'll probably delete my previous post soon for obvious reasons. I took a personal day today to deal with the fallout of her idiocy and have just enough time during my lunch to sneak you guys a snack. You guys, we won. Kind of. Me, you, and everyone here on Just Know Mother-in-Law. All victory is shared as it was a collective effort. I got a groveling apology this morning from mother-in-law. I listened to her, truly listened to her, and you know what? It was a weird freaking apology. I said a bunch of neutral, yeah, okay, but I did not really accept the apology yet because why should I? You can be as sorry as you want for something you did, but it's the other person's prerogative to forgive you. Saying sorry isn't a carte blanche to be a jerk. Mother-in-law, I think I need more time. Dear husband knows I'm not a quick one to forgive. Okay, so when we left off, dear husband was driving her forgotten wallet to the airport. Here's where some background is helpful. You guys, my husband is a monk. He has the temperament of an iceberg. I'm the one with a fiery disposition. Can you tell? What can I say? Opposites do attract. It takes a lot of him to just make him mad or set him off, and it's usually only when there's a direct threat to me or his beloved best friend. Our dog. Well, hours go by and he's still at the airport. I knew this was going to happen because the plane ticket we bought mother-in-law wasn't until very early the next morning, and she probably wanted to spend more time with her son or rewrite history or alienate more people's trust. I don't really know. But I do know what when DH came home from the airport, I knew that shit went down. He came into the house like a hurricane. Doors were slammed, keys were thrown, he even felt compelled to kick a dog toy, which only made the dog happily run after it and break all tension. Apparently, his hour-long conversation with his mother was frustrating but productive. I'll summarize below. Mother-in-law spent an hour trying to minimize the situation. She doesn't think what she did was that big of a deal because of a family loyalty or whatever. Of course, she will never say anything about the case because we're her family. It was then that dear husband showed the world his sexy diamond spine. He told her that if family was so important to her, then she would not have hurt me like this, and that I am her family because I am his family. Swoon. She seemed to start getting how serious the situation is at this point, because of course it's not that big a deal until her precious baby boy is hurting. He then went on to say how this could have hurt him. Note, my dear husband put me through law school. I'm not saying he was with me when I was in law school. I'm saying this man paid my tuition and supported me for 3 years. We did this shit together. He told her how much we were as a couple invested in my career, and how we could have lost the house because of her. He told her that now that I was finally practicing, that it was his turn to go back to grad school, and how she could have completely annihilated that option. It was around this time that she started ugly crying. You know what I'm talking about. Snot, tears, saliva. She never meant to hurt him. She's so sorry. She won't say anything to anybody about what happened ever. She'll never jeopardize his career. Are you kidding me? That's literally my title. Oh my gosh, I'm hyperventilating just saying this. So she finally understands the gravity of what happened. He told her that she did was a non-negotiable deal breaker and that he would not hold it against me if I never allowed her in our home again. And this is where things got a little dicey for her. She got her giant puppy eyes all welled up and pouted. "But I'm your mother. Can you just tell her to let me back in?" That's cute, mother-in-law. The last time someone told me what to do, example, to calm down, they ended up in an Uber to the airport. Let's see how your son's luck will run with that request. Dear husband knows his little quirk about me, and he got frustrated because it's like mother-in-law's not hearing what he was saying. He was trying to explain to her that this was between me and her. She breached my trust, and these are my consequences. Dear husband and I are equals. He's not my boss. She can't quote, "Can I speak to your supervisor?" her way out of this. She was still not getting it by the time she was told to board. So he just came home and made a bunch of loud noises because it's hard on him to have very two important people in his life go toe-to-toe. He told me it felt like she was deliberately playing dumb to not face the music. Duh, babe. Anyways, long story short, is that she called to beg my forgiveness this morning, but the apology was filled with, "I would never do anything to hurt my baby. I'm so sorry for all the pain this caused him. I was wrong, etc., etc." I mean, am I wrong to hold out for an apology to me? I don't want to dwell on this, but it seems like she doesn't really give a duck about how this could be affected me. Only when it was explained to her how it could have hurt her son did she feel even an ounce of remorse. The end. Oh yeah, I almost forgot about the worst part. Okay, so you know how she quote forgot her wallet? Well, if you've been following closely, we did not finish lunch and mother-in-law decided to pull a poorly executed power move by leaving her wallet behind. So of course she must have been hungry waiting at the airport all that time. Did she have to beg for money? Did she have to depend on the kindness of strangers? Of course not. This is just no mother-in-law. She used her Apple Pay from a phone we pay for, linked to an account we also pay for. Dear husband had to explain to her that if I lose my job, we won't dual income household anymore and we'll have to trim the fat. So, bye-bye QVC and random church rummage sales. We would have to cut your allowance off, lady. This got her attention, and I firmly believe it's what got her to even muster an apology to me, as insincere as it was. Wait a second. Another update. Holy crap. I was so ready for all this to be over that I didn't even realize how blind she's made me. Of course, it doesn't matter what she thinks it's true or not. She still went into my locked office, opened a file that was put away. How is any of that okay, no matter what the explanation is? I'll tell ya, dumb is contagious sometimes. If you did find yourself exposed to dumb, habit shortness of breath, blurred vision, please contact your local emergency room for a mother-in-law amputation. Nope, screw her, I'm still mad. Also, not that I own anyone or an explanation for what I do with my own damn money, but mother-in-law gets an allowance from us because she makes just enough to cover her mortgage and bills. A few $100 a month for us, it's not a lot. But to her, it's the difference between eating fresh, healthy foods or processed crap. One missed paycheck can equal disaster for her. That's how tight her budget is. We pay for some day-to-day stuff because, to be frank, I don't want her living with me. Sex in the kitchen is fun. Sue me. Laugh out loud, don't. I'm very busy at work already. Okay, so I know what I said was my last update, but was going to be my last update until I needed an outside perspective on this situation. I don't even know how to process what mother-in-law said to me. It broke my brain. Some of you might remember me. I'm the attorney daughter-in-law who unceremoniously threw her mother-in-law out of the house for being nosy. Well, I obviously have not spoken to her since the purge. a national holiday for all daughter-in-laws. However, with Thanksgiving being next month, she has a reason to contact us. She sent a few text messages here and there, and was met with non-committal, "we'll see," from the both of us. I guess the lack of concrete plans made her bite the bullet and call me. Even though she's so scared of me, cue eye roll. So, some background here is necessary. Dear husband's parents are divorced. Christmas is always with my family since neither side of his family has any children, and my side has like millions. Christmas is more freaking magical with children because they believe in Santa. I don't think that's a statement you can find fault with. Anyways, so to compromise, we spend even-numbered years at father-in-law's house for Thanksgiving and odd-numbered years at mother-in-law's house. As you can probably guess, I'm not keen on going to see her this year. So, back to the phone call. She calls me and just outright asks if we're coming to the southern state this year. I wasn't sure about going before her audacity made me snap. I said, hell no. In fact, I'm still mad at you, and I'm sure as duck you have not forgiven you. And you've never apologized to me, or even though I'm the one you wronged. She knew we weren't going to go, otherwise why would she ask? It's an odd-numbered year, this is one of her years. She was either trying to mid things with me in time for the holidays, or she was trying to bait me. Either way, it kind of worked. This is where she drops the idiot bomb on me. She's sorry, but she doesn't understand why I'm so mad. It's not like she could have said anything anyways. After all, by law, you're supposed to keep your family secrets or you can go to jail. I'll admit, this is where I short-circuited. I should have asked more inquisitive questions, I should have investigated further, but it was really hard for her, or for me, to respond because, like I said, my brain broke. From what clues I was able to gather during her ramblings, she was confused spousal privilege with family privilege. Alert, this is not a thing, so please don't say you learned it from me. So, she thinks that because spouses cannot be compelled to testify against one another, that this means families can't tell on each other. Okay, I want to make things just once very clear. I did not marry into the mafia, so at this point you should be laughing so hard that you're peeing your pants. Why would the family need that much protection, mother-in-law? Why? Second, how does this mean you can snoop at my files? No one in the family is on trial. Spouse privileges only come into play when there's a criminal or civil suit occurring. It's a doormat thing. I just can't. Third, yes, spouses cannot be compelled to testify against each other, but they can absolutely waive their privilege not to. That she cares, but I just wanted to announce the fact as a PSA, so that no one will ever get this so wrong again. I'm still going to eat turkey at her house and make nice because the situation's just too recent for me to genuinely cordial to her yet. But you guys, I'm inclined to begin to forgive her. Her explanation of why she thought it was okay to read my files is just dumb enough that I can understand it's being mistaken of ignorance. But it's honestly too, quote, smart for her to make up out of thin air. She's not complex enough of the thinker to backtrack and make up an explanation. She really isn't. This is where I need your help. I'm clouded by my legal education. Of course I think this is beyond stupid. And the fact that anyone can even fathom the concept of familial privilege makes me want to stick a Phillips head screwdriver into my ear and swirl. But not everyone went to law school. Can someone reasonably have made this mistake? I don't want to be mad at her forever. It honestly takes too much energy to be mad at someone you love. Bonus. We sent her a credit card instead of depositing cash into her account every month. It was small and petty thing, but knowing that we can see her purchases really cut down the splurge spending. It's really only groceries and gas now. I did this under the guise of, quote, "Oh, we'd really like the airline miles." But really, it was a quote, "I'm super duper mad at you, but I already kicked you out of my house, so really, what else can I do?" Okay, Mr. Reddito here. So this is a continuous saga. There's 2 more updates unrelated to the story, and they're titled, "She's Earned a Name, Piercing Patty Part 1. This is a saga of how she and I came to be no contact. It's a very long one with lots of moving parts, so I'll likely have to break this story into post. Piercing Patty, PP for efficiency, has a younger sister, AIL, who in turn has a daughter, CIL. AIL is a nice lady, but our relationship consists of very polite conversations every Thanksgiving, so I don't consider us very close. AIL and Piercing Patty live in southern state. Dear husband and I live in a much larger, much urban coastal state. CIL currently attends college in our city. She's a very bright young woman, and I've grown to be very fond of her. Since we are the only family CIL has in the area, we get the pleasure of hosting her for long weekends during holidays like Martin Luther King, when a 3-day weekend is nice, but would not warrant a trip all the way home for a college student. It's great. She gets to come do laundry, and I have someone to talk about my guilty pleasure, celebrity gossip. We feed her, she walks the dogs for us, sometimes I treat her to a mani-pedi. And then we send her back with clean clothes and some leftovers. AIL has expressed how grateful she is that we open our home to her kid. It's no problem at all, AIL. It truly is our pleasure as your kid is awesome. Well, about 2 months ago, CIL was struck by a drunk driver as she was driving home from class. It was bad. The car looked like a crumpled piece of paper. When I went to the tow yard to get insurance figured out and I saw how our vehicle looked, I felt like the wind was knocked out of me. We were very lucky she only suffered a broken leg and a fractured wrist. It could have been so much worse. And I honestly cannot even talk about the accident without devolving into pure unadulterated rage. Naturally, AIL was in a frenzy and needed to see her daughter. ASAP. Now, this part is unconfirmed, but the story is that AIL was so emotional about the whole ordeal, she asked Piercing Patty to come along for support. I think the more obvious reality is that Piercing Patty invited herself along and AIL did not have the capacity to say no to her. Because, well, hello, her child's injured. Piercing Patty, I'm on to you. All those times I thought I was being paranoid, I wasn't. I see you now clear as day. You were committed to the long con. I know this won't make sense to you guys yet, but it will in my next few. Dear husband and I obviously got to the hospital first. We saw CIL and made sure she was okay. Dear husband stayed with her while the doctors did doctor things, and I went off to do lawyer things because if you think you can drunk and T-bone the only person in my life who even knows the name of all the Kardashians, you got another thing coming. AIL and Piercing Patty arrived mid-afternoon the next morning. They literally booked the next flight out. Cool, I get it, but we did call you guys to tell you that CIL was pretty much A-okay. So maybe you could have slowed your roll a bit and planned this trip a little more carefully. As in, where are we gonna stay when you get in town? AIL and PP, of course, you expect it to be my house. Why wouldn't it be? It's not like I banned Piercing Patty from it for breaking into my home office and doing shit that would get me metaphorical ass jumped by the state bar or anything. But since CIL's in the hospital, I'm the one that's gonna look like the a-hole for following through with my rules. What's next? Part 2. Piercing Patty almost gets arrested twice. So, as we left off, there was a small family reunion in the hospital. CIL, dear husband, me, AIL, and the star of the show, Piercing Patty. AIL came swooping into the hospital, just momming it up left and right. She was fluffing pillows, talking to the doctors, calling whoever it is you need to call when your kid's ducked up. Meanwhile, Piercing Patty is sitting in the corner acting really tired. Now, I say acting really tired because it was her comical adaptation of how a tired person would act. She was dramatically yawning, stretching her arms, rubbing her eyes. She looked like a French mime. She did not say it outright, but I knew she wanted to go home with me and dear husband. Yeah, too freaking bad. As soon as I saw that CIL was being cared for by her doting mother, I was ready to peace out. I was wiped. I gave dear husband the signal we use to cocktail parties to indicate let's GTFO, and we put on our coats. Piercing Patty stops us and has the audacity to say, "Well, what about me?" Yeah, what about you, Piercing Patty? For freaking once, none of this is about you. Where am I supposed to stay? I don't care what creature lives in a cookie tree or some shit. I pause for a second and realize it's not about me either. Fully ignoring Piercing Patty, I turn to AIL and ask her where she had intended on staying. AIL tells me she plans on staying at the hotel adjacent to the hospital, because she did not rent a car and she wanted to be accessible to her daughter. You know, like a normal person. So there you go, Piercing Patty. If the real reason you came was to help AIL, then I guess your ass is staying at the hotel too. But alas, logic does not shame a just-no mother-in-law, and the conversation went like this. Can I come with you guys to rest for a few hours? DH shoots me a glance because he knows I'm about to pop off and give him some of the go easy eyes. I say no. Why not? Because AIL needs help with her daughter. That's the sole reason you came, isn't it? Oh, AIL's fine without me for a few hours. Then why'd you even come anyways? Dear husband and I don't have to chauffeur you back and forth all day. We have a lot of work to catch up on and we're going home. Oh, I'll just get a cab later. Why do you kids call it goober? At this point, I knew what she was doing. I felt a kind of paranoid up until now, but she kept pushing and pushing to come back. After I threw her out, and I was going to push back. Well, if you need a place to nap just for a couple hours. Then, you know what? Go check her into a hotel. Patricia, everyone's had a long night. DH knows he almost ducked up real bad, so he just shut up and left the room. I followed. DH and I get home, we crawl into bed and sleep for exactly 1 hour, because our phones start ringing. It's the gate guard. Okay, so let's back up for a second. We bought a house in a gated community less than a year ago. To enter into the community, you either need a beepy box on your dashboard, or your name needs to be added by a resident of the community to the gate list. Do you see where this is going? Guard calls us and tells us that the car just dropped off a lady who's screaming at him. She's repeating over and over that she is dear husband's mother and demands to be let in. She's saying that she's used to being on the list, so there must be a mistake. There's no mistake, Piercing Patty. I took you off that damn thing almost immediately after I exorcised you. From my home. Begone, Satan. Dear husband groans and puts on pants to go wrangle his mother. This is the best part, my llamas. So, before he came to make the approximately 1-minute drive to the front gate, PP goes ballistic. She charges the little booth, and the guards have to start throwing things. Staples, radio, stationery, all airborne. She got a few good throws in there too, and the guard tells me that she made contact with a pin cup. One of them suffered a blow to the noggin. Obviously, they call the cops, and dear husband calls me and tells me to get down there, because they're about to arrest her. And I say, oh no, she's better call a lawyer. Guys, that story was an absolute roller coaster. Thanks for sticking around this long, as there was so many moving parts to that. I just have one question for you. Do you think OP was a little too carried away and treated mother-in-law very horribly? Kicking her out, not having her wallet, making her go to the airport, blah, 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 blah. I know she read the documents, but I want to see your opinion on this story. A lot of people in the comment section were saying by the end how annoyed they were with OP about the mistreatment. But then again, Piercing Patty was relentless. So, drop your thoughts down below, and as always, Mr. Reddito is going to see you tomorrow, so click that subscribe button and I'll catch you then.